developing Russia's nuke forces an absolute priority. South Korea, Brazil sign key minerals trade deals. Malaysia mulls law to curb premiership to 2 terms. China, massively expanded nuclear arsenal U.S. Russian President Vladimir Putin says strengthening the country's nuclear forces is now an absolute priority, following the expiration of the last remaining nuclear arms control treaty between Russia and the United States. In a video address marking Russia's Defender of the Fatherland Day, Putin emphasized the importance of developing the country's nuclear triad: land-based missiles, submarine-launched missiles, and strategic bombers, calling it essential for national security and global strategic balance. His remarks come after the expiry of the New START, the final nuclear arms reduction agreement between Moscow and Washington. Putin pledged to continue strengthening Russia's army and navy, citing lessons learned from nearly 4 years of war in Ukraine. He said improvements would focus on combat readiness, mobility, and the ability to operate in extreme conditions. Despite the treaty's expiration, Moscow says it will continue to act responsibly regarding its strategic nuclear capabilities and adhere to previously agreed limits. The speech comes just days before the 4th anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, a conflict that has devastated cities, displaced millions, and caused heavy casualties on both sides. Meanwhile, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz condemned what he called the utter barbarity of Russia's actions, underscoring continued tensions between Moscow and Western leaders. South Korean President Lee Jae-myung held summit talks in Seoul with Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, with both leaders agreeing to significantly expand cooperation across multiple sectors. The two sides announced plans to elevate bilateral ties into a strategic partnership, pledging closer collaboration on trade, critical minerals, advanced technology, defense, and cultural exchange. President Lee emphasized the importance of stability on the Korean peninsula, saying peace built on conditions that remove the need for conflict represents the strongest form of security. During the visit, the leaders oversaw the signing of 10 memorandums of understanding. These agreements cover trade and industrial policy, core and rare minerals, the digital economy including artificial intelligence, agriculture, healthcare and biotechnology, small business cooperation, and joint efforts to combat cybercrime, narcotics, and other transnational threats. They also adopted a 4-year action plan outlining concrete steps to deepen cooperation in strategic minerals, defense industries, space technology, and food security. Brazil is South Korea's largest trading partner in South America. President Lula highlighted that Brazil holds the world's second-largest rare earth reserves along with substantial nickel deposits, expressing hope that South Korean firms will increase investment in the country's mining and high-tech sectors. Malaysia has introduced new legislation to limit the Prime Minister's tenure to a maximum of 2 terms, a significant step aimed at strengthening accountability and preventing the concentration of executive power. Currently, Malaysia has no constitutional cap on how long a prime minister can remain in office. The move comes after decades of debate over executive dominance, particularly following the long rule of former Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad, who served a total of 24 years across 2 separate terms, from 1981 to 2003, and again from 2018 to 2020. Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim announced the push for reform earlier this year, amid renewed public pressure to tackle corruption and improve governance standards. Anwar's ruling coalition, Pakatan Harapan, had pledged to introduce a 2-term limit in its 2022 election manifesto. However, critics have pointed to what they describe as a slow pace of broader political reforms. If passed, the legislation would mark one of the most consequential constitutional changes in Malaysia's political system in recent years, signaling an effort to institutionalize leadership rotation and reduce the risk of entrenched political power. The United States has accused China of rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal and reiterated demands that Beijing join any future arms control agreement. The remarks come after the expiration of New START, the last remaining nuclear arms control pact between Washington and Moscow. Speaking at the Conference on Disarmament in Geneva, U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Christopher Ye said the previous treaty failed to address what he described as China's rapid and opaque nuclear buildup. He alleged that Beijing has expanded its arsenal without transparency and claimed U.S. officials believe China could reach nuclear parity with the United States within 4 to 5 years. Though he did not clarify whether he was referring to total warheads, delivery systems, or strategic capability. China has repeatedly rejected calls to participate in a three-way nuclear arms agreement with the United States and Russia, arguing that its nuclear stockpile remains significantly smaller. According to the Nobel Peace Prize-winning group International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, both Russia and the United States possess more than 5,000 nuclear warheads each, far exceeding publicly estimated Chinese totals.